Hello, hello. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues, both political, cultural, from the silly to the serious. And oh, my friends, my viewers, we have a week of content, and we're going to start it off super strong today with a topic that I found interesting that was brought up during the Republican primary debates. There was some talk about using military, right, in some form or fashion against cartels in Mexico. And it caused me to think, well, is this feasible? Is this wise? Is this something we want to do? Every month, hundreds, if not thousands, are affected by the fentanyl crisis flowing over our borders from Mexico into the US. The cartel is facilitating this and helping this to happen. The government, Mexican government, either cannot or will not stop the problem. At what point do we, the Americans, right, have the right and responsibility to go in? And in what fashion and to what extent? We're going to talk about that today, and I've gathered a lovely set of guests to discuss the topic. We're going to start off with Admiral Gibbs. Go ahead. What do you got for us?
Howdy, how y'all doing today? First, I want to say people today may not realize this, but as a person living along the southern border, we are in a war, and it's real simple. These cartels are running amok along the southern border. They're bringing in sex trafficking, they're bringing in fentanyl, they're supplying China. It's all sorts of problems. What we need to do is we need to send the troops in and glass the cartels. That's what we need to do, plain and simple.
Okay, thank you very much. YouTube, sorry, my title was last week's. I'll change that for you. I hear you. I hear you. Let me get that. Okay, we got a strong Glass the Cartels take. Ellen Degenerate, what's your thoughts?
All right. Topic is on whether military action should be deployed to stop the Mexican cartels. I'm going to say a fat no for two main reasons. Number one, the cartels are like Hydra. You take down one, two more pop up. There are no shortage of desperate people south of the border who would love to be the next 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜. This means no matter what we do to them, we are avoiding the real problem, which is the demand within our own borders. As long as that demand exists, especially in today's hyper-globalized world, there will always be a supplier as long as there are poor, desperate people who no longer want to be poor and desperate. All the money used to fight the cartels would be better spent on decreasing the demand at home. Number two, there's no need. The Pentagon is pulling 1,100 troops from the mission right now because the expected migrant surge from the end of Title 42 never materialized. In the days leading up to the end of Title 42, border agents were encountering 10K migrants a day. Immediately after Title 42 expired, the number dropped to 5K encounters a day and have stayed low according to Border Patrol data.
Okay, thank you. And we'll get into it, I'm sure, as the discussion goes on. Next up, food shops. What you got for us?
The invasion people are wrong. I have the facts, but I will not say them in my opening statement because I want to save my secret weapons. That will be all.
Thanks,
It's a
L from
bold
Death Note.
strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out for her. Thanks for being here, and I stand with bated breath waiting for these secret weapons to drop. Thank you. Hammer, what you got?
Hey, basically, I just support having military troops in Mexico to assist with the police force so that they can gain control of their country, because they don't have control of the country, and if things go on as they are, then they will never have control of their country. I'm a little bit in the middle in that I think that this should only happen if the Mexican government agrees to it. But if they don't agree to it, it is completely irresponsible, and it is basically selling their own citizens down the river for no real reason.
Okay, thank you, and we'll get into it as we go. SDA, what you got?
I think that just like the previous gentleman, Mr. Hammer here, that if there is no cooperation from the Mexican government on any of these operations, then they will not happen. If you do, you're sacrificing a lot of local and international um, leverage to do such a thing, and you'd be basically all the candidates basically want to abandon Ukraine to start a war at home. Um, I mean, we already know the Mexican president has explicitly responded to this and said he would not support any kind of operation. And secondly, any kind of military operation against the cartels is just going to flat out fail and cause significant backlash in both populations.
Wait, you're with us?
Well, we'll
Yeah,
see
yeah.
how it goes.
Awesome.
Next up, last but certainly not least, someone we haven't had for a while, and I'm excited to have back, Tiberius. What you got?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This gets nuanced and complicated real quick, so here's the TLDR. I'm actually going to take almost the exact opposite opinion of the two gentlemen before me. I think that if the Mexican government does not cooperate, then we need to consider this as a viable option. The problem is that this does not work if we are not able to work with the Mexican government, but the problem is that if the Mexican government is not in this fight, then it's basically a unilateral decision that we have to take. At minimum, I definitely want to keep that card on the table to be like, hey, we are authorized to do this, and we will do it if we find necessary. However, there are a few people that if we do that, we're going to critically undermine that are allies in northern Mexico. I think that'll be the good opening.
And with that, we'll get into it. Again, if you have trouble getting into the conversation, just raise your hand. I'll try to put you in. But that's the question, right? Say the government, if the Mexican government, for whatever reason, says, we do not want you here. Do not help us. Do not come in. At what point do we actually override what they have to say? At what point do we consider them just another part of the cartels? What do we think?
Can I ask more, just a broad question to just like the anti-people, just to see if they're like even consistent about this? Do you guys support any policy to prevent demand at home?
Generally, yeah.
Like I'm talking like clean needle exchanges, places where like the U.S.
Yeah.
government has the money to just completely end the cartel overnight. All we would have to do is set up places where people can get illicit drugs in a clinical setting from safe medical professionals rather than off the streets, and that would cut huge into the supply. And it's not like the U.S. government couldn't make the drugs better than the cartels. The cartels are.
Yeah, I'm
There you go.
broadly in support of decriminalization, harm
Is it-
reduction.
Is anyone who is pro-invasion not?
No, I'm not. I mean,
struggle with that
I'm anti-drug war, obviously, but I really don't think this would like stop the cartels. The cartels have reached into firearm trafficking, human trafficking, and even if we did like legalize weed or legalize drugs, like even people in Mexico and people sometimes in America, especially like if you built a shop, I mean, we know these places are corrupt. They would likely source a lot of their product from these cartels because these are the greatest producers of these.
Why not support the government producing it at a loss to destroy illicit
Hold on.
foundation?
Reservoir, thank you for the raid. Thank you.
Oh,
for voting
hi,
to be
Reservoir.
back.
Hmm.
Hey, Resi.
Carry on.
Yeah. So, here's the thing with the gun thing. Can you repeat the gun point again?
Yeah, the cartel has largely stepped into firearms trading.
So here's the fun part about the gun thing is that if you cut off the gun pipeline that arms the cartels, they will be effectively mostly disarmed. So did you know that 70 to 90% of the Mexican drug cartel guns are trafficked from US gun stores supplied by US gun manufacturers and distributors?
How'd they come by
I'm
that
not-
information? Do you know how they came by that information?
That's relatively accurate, but there's always more data to
Yeah.
explain why.
And
that's the
and
case.
not only
Yeah.
that, in 2004, they failed to renew the 10-year ban on assault weapons, which made it possible to recklessly, which
Thank
made it
God,
possible to
by the way.
recklessly sell them to traffickers. And they did a study, right? And for the 2 years that followed, 60% of the homicides, in Mexico near the border, has dramatically increased. And not only that, in addition to that, right?
I mean, that's a lot of correlation and
I
not
forgot-
causation.
Yeah.
Hold
That's
on,
a lot
let
of
her finish.
correlation.
Wait,
Let
hold
her
on.
finish.
I forgot, like, if anybody can bring up, like, the specific name of the bill. I forgot what the name of the bill was called, but I mean, at the same time, you can say like correlation without causation, but I would love to hear what causation or correlation, like if you can make a stronger argument for that specific case, then sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to hear that.
In specific to firearms, yeah, a lot of weapons flow out of the United States to our bordering countries. Not so much to Canada, happens a lot less because there's not as much of a demand, but definitely to Mexico. The source of that problem is a very small group of federal firearms license dealers who are violating the law. And if you look at the numbers, it's if I'd have to go pull myself, I didn't know we were going to talk about guns this much, but
we have time to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that 79% number is correct, but also 70 to 90% of the straw purchases and illegal sales that happen to by 2 to 3% of the total FFLs. So like a very small group of the gun dealers that have federal licenses are selling all of the weapons illegally through the actual points of access that everybody else would have to go to. It's not like Joe Schmo, Admiral Gibbs here walking in, buying 15 AR-15s and driving across the border to Mexico with them strapped onto the truck.
Have they fixed the gun show loophole?
There is a.
It's not a loophole, but
okay. I'm going to interject. Yeah. Gun stuff's interesting. We can table that aside for now, though, right?
Okay.
Like I want.
Yeah, and the other thing is just quickly on the assault weapons ban. The assault weapons ban was completely ineffective. All of the bans that they passed were entirely cosmetic, and you can get semi-automatic rifles with all of the same functionality and features during that time period.
Let me just loop all this back to the main point. All right. So first question was talked about. We talked about how we should do programs at home. All right, cool. Let's talk about marijuana. It becoming more legal. Guess what? They started switching over to fentanyl, which started killing more people. And then they had their crime rates in Mexico.
Wait, what is this? What is this argument from marijuana to fentanyl? Why do you put marijuana and fentanyl in the same sentence?
It's very simple. Let me say simple. As marijuana sales have decreased for the cartels because the competition.
I'll write your points down. Don't worry.
They've switched over to producing more synthetic drugs, fentanyl being a key one among them, right? And a lot of these chemicals they're getting from China. All right. Here's another thing. Y'all talk about, do we have the money to do this? Do we have the money to do that? Yeah, we have the money. Let me tell you a statistic. Here's a stat. A B-52 bomber can carry 70,000 tons of bombs. All right, there's 70,000 pounds. 70,000 pounds of bombs. No, hear me out. We have the most powerful GPS satellite system in the world.
70,000 dead Mexicans.
We have people on the ground, the CIA. We have we have the Office of Naval Intelligence. We have all sorts of intelligence agencies. We can pinpoint these people in their homes where they sleep. What we can do is we can go and glass these factories, and we can stop the problem at the source instead of doing a band-aid and trap a little boo-boo here in the US.
We've had all that military technology and weapon systems for 60 years, and it did not help us in Vietnam.
Hold on.
The cartels helped Vietnam.
I need to give Admiral his captain's mast here. Okay. What about sending a bunch of 18 to 24-year-olds with PTSD to a drug-ridden area? Sounds like a great idea for you. I'm honestly the best way to create more drug trafficking is to send the military to a country. Okay.
Wow. Wait, how's that? Wait, how's that?
This is a
wait. Stop, all of you. Stop.
Are we going to pretend like there isn't? Sorry.
Stop. We are going all over the place. Are you all on drugs right now? I can't understand. Like, we have gone so many rabbit holes, and I really just want to talk about, right? And I want to focus, at least for a little bit. Please, for the love of God, for a little bit, focus on to what extent do we have the right to go into another country who is, people in that country are causing us harm. Do we have the right to go in to stop them? And to what extent? Because why would we send troops? Why would we just not drone strike these motherfuckers, right? Like, we don't need to send a single boot on the ground. We could simply send in a couple drones, take care of the leadership. Maybe it won't work. Maybe it will. There's ethical concerns there. I want to talk about that. So I'm gonna throw it to Tiberius, and hopefully we can get back on track and see where this goes. Go ahead.
I want to give, appreciate it, man. I want to give just a hand of context real quick. The reason why this is a issue for the right is because Representative Dan Crenshaw out of Texas put forward a bill to authorize military force against the cartels. it leaves a very wide open thing that like the B-52 meme is real. Like we could do that, or we could go in with like spec and we could do like a whole range of things from drone strikes to literally an invasion. That's what the bill basically authorizes. So there's a lot of leeway for the president to go during a certain direction. Now, to answer Wick's question, like at what point do we get to declare that like this is a problem, we're going in to fix it? We really have to weigh the options here, because on one side of this, we have made a hell of an improvement for North Mexicans in the regard of their standard of living, the credibility of their institutions. They've actually been helping us a lot, not only with immigration, but with fighting these cartels. And I want to give them their jurisprudence, whatever word I want to use here. I'm sorry. I want to give them their credit. I want to give them their credit that they've really been helping. They've really been getting like their lives forward. And these are allies in the making. The problem is Central and South Mexico is not our friends. The AMLO administration has had this like really weird idea that they can just hug and kiss the cartel and that problem's just going to go away. Fuck that. Like there's a level to where we recognize it's already a national security threat. Is it to the point where it demands an invasion? We're getting close. 70,000 Americans a year is a pretty big deal from largely a foreign investment. And while I do agree with my left-wing friends that we can do some more to help target demand here at home, we also can target the supply abroad. I think we can do both.
Let me just follow it up.
You've talked too much. Would Mexico be equally as morally impetuous to invade the U.S. to stop the flow of guns that kill more people than the fentanyl kill here?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, yeah, you can make that argument. I wouldn't actually dissuade from that.
And why would that be such a great idea? Because Mexico has the manufacturing possibility. They have the science to make nuclear weapons.
Listen.
I think we just jumped off the train.
Did you know that?
Hold on.
Yeah, but this is a relevant question, right?
Hear from...
Is this not?
You brought up, somebody brought up the point earlier about Hydra, right? And I think that's actually an apt description of what the cartels are. You kill somebody, two more pop up, right? That's kind of what's happened. Hell, they even had like a breakaway branch, their spec ops turn into a cartel, right? So he's right. It does turn into Hydra. You know how you stop Hydra? You go in there and you cut off every single one of your heads, and then you scorch the earth behind it to make sure they don't come back. You're right. We need to invade Mexico, and we need to send people there. We need to bomb them and put boots on the ground that work with the locals to take out these cartels. We already have vigilante groups in Mexico fighting the cartels of their own accord. Why do we not want to help these people take back their own country? Why do we want to keep letting Americans die? And as for how many Americans have to die? One American killed by a foreign power, and these cartels are a foreign power, mind you. One American killed by a foreign power is one too many, and as a government, they had the duty to go in there and take these out to protect American citizens.
When I hear these arguments, I hear the animus of Prussia and Reagan speaking. You are employing realpolitik ideals of like casus belli, like, oh, we have the authority to invade these people because they're doing this bad thing. And
I hate to break it to you, but we are the superpower.
But that's not how we play the game in modern, international society. We don't just say, well, yes, your husband killed my wife after we married them, and we're going to invade you.
Listen,
your economic activity is causing death in the United States.
Russia is invading a country for no reason.
The other part, that's Prussia, realpolitik. The Reagan part is this Nancy Reagan, you have blood on your hands because you smoke marijuana. That's what I'm hearing from both of you, okay? We have the source and target of the problem is the demand for these substances. Fentanyl in particular its demand was driven by the opioid crisis, fueled by U.S. companies, okay? If we're going to start blaming rather than working on an actual solution to the demand for narcotics, sure, we can go bomb every single drug cartel lab and start cutting off heads of the Mexican government who don't fall in line and want to cooperate with us. But it's just not going to actually solve the problem in the long term, and it's going to cause serious economic and social reparations. You really think this is going to happen without a whole new sweeping wave of surveillance laws and invasive warrants on all the Mexicans that live in the United States?
That's all the Mexicans who are going to want to avoid being in a war zone and taking asylum in America.
The problem is that the source and problem are people like Admiral Gibbs and Tiberius, right? Because at the end of the day, like if you invade Mexico, even if Mexico doesn't have enough time to build nukes, because you glass them all like before they have time to remanufacture nukes, right? Then all the other countries will look at the United States and be like, yo, bro, so the United States can do whatever the fuck they want and invade us. Like, if they deem that we're not morally like good enough, then fine, we'll just impose economic sanctions on the United States. We won't ship anything to the United States because it's not like the United States is like a mass producer of literally everything. You know what I mean? Like, why?
I'm gonna rein this in. Let's try to deal in the realm of reality for this. I think that there is something to be said about what SDA was saying, where, again, and to you, food stamps, right? There's something to be said about there are international repercussions if we do this, right? If we were to send drones or special spec ops in or something, even for all the right reasons, there would be repercussions and they would damage the U.S. And that matters, right? They would damage our image abroad. They would make it less likely that people would work with us, etc. But again, we see the other side of the coin, where every year 70,000 Americans die to this. And even if we were to implement all sorts of measures to decrease demand, well, like, again, Hammer said, when they, or was it Hammer or Gibbs who said, when we made weed legal, they switched to something else, right?
Fentanyl, yeah.
And that was good.
That's actually not true.
That is 100% true.
No, nobody that was like smoking weed's like, oh no, now I can get weed legal now. Now I'm gonna go do fentanyl. People that do heroin don't even want to do fentanyl. Fentanyl is an additive that drug dealers use to make their profits bigger. No, not very many people are specifically going out of their way to do fentanyl.
No, what they're doing instead is they're taking a larger production value with synthetic drugs and producing more synthetic drugs using fentanyl to make up for their losses in the weed market. Because why would you buy from Shane?
Are you just repeating what I said, but in different
words? No.
I'm saying you're wrong, like on every level, because they literally stopped. They lost a larger market share, and
but if we were to pursue,
let me make a clarification.
I want to go to Hammer.
Yeah.
Hammer, go ahead.
Sure, I want to make a clarification for Mr. Gibbs, because you're saying that people are like, weed is legal, so now the people who are consuming it want to use weed. I think what Gibbs is saying is that the sellers, the cartels, once weed is legal and they don't have a market for that, then they'll start selling harder drugs. They also have those markets to fall back on, like meth and heroin and stuff like that.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Then couldn't we end it tomorrow with just the clinics doing like a clean heroin thing and needle things? We could end it tomorrow. We could run tomorrow.
It's not necessarily. Yeah, no, it's not necessarily true.
We have enough money to run it at a loss for like 100 years.
I seriously don't understand how you can think you're gonna like actually get rid of a drug problem by sanctioning the use of
I'm not trying to get rid of the drug.
Not sanctioning the use of drugs.
I'm trying to get.
It kind of is.
Stop. I want to Ellen, finish your point. Ellen, I want to hear your point, but then I want Tiberius to respond. I want to hear his counter. Go ahead.
The point is, the discussion is about destroying the cartels. If you destroy the cartels, people have been trying to destroy the cartels with bullets and bombs for years. The only way to destroy the mafia, to destroy the cartel, is by destroying the demand for the products they give. That's what the point is. So if the government ran these clinics at a loss to the point they're giving it for free, where the cartel can't keep up, then they will have no power because they won't have any money to pay off anybody or get the arms that they use to maintain their power.
Yeah, I'm not on board with any of this. The
first part, hold on, Tiberius, instead of just focusing on the clinics and the needles, what about just broad decriminalization and drug war toning down rather than just needles?
No, Tiberius has feelings about it. That's why he won't do it. He doesn't know real data.
I want to hear what Tiberius has to say.
All right, yeah. First and foremost is that like there's levels to where like I get where you're going. You have at least a little bit of a point here, but the reality at least is, number one, we've already been down this road when it comes to playing Colombia. I cannot talk today. We literally Colombia used to be run by the cartels in the same way that Mexico has been for literally almost 100 years now. Like we found partners that we could work with where, yeah, we did have to come in with some bombs and some bullets and, break some faces, but we found people that we work with, and Colombia has massively transformed in the way that what they used to be just 20 years ago. Like, y'all remember Clear and Present Danger? Like, maybe y'all are a little young for this shit, but like that was a thing. Like Colombia is a lot better now. Granted, they're not all the way there yet, but in the same way, like they're competitive or tier to us now. They have an effective law enforcement arm where we actually don't have to send in literally Navy SEALs to go kill cartels.
Hey,
they
can
can
I
do
just
it
pro-
themselves.
Can I just prove your point right now? Colombia's
Sure.
estimated cocaine exports are highest in the history of the drug trade as of June 14, 2021.
That's fucking bullshit.
You know-
It's coming from
you know what
Nicaragua.
else? You know what else I could also bring up as an example of like a historic thing is that literally we tried to do something in the Middle East by sending in troops and shit, and then we got beaten up by guerrilla warfare. Like literally, if we
Yeah.
send in troops into like Mexico and shit, do you know what kind of strategy the cartels use?
I hate to like be
Guerrilla
the guy that
warfare,
does the
okay?
COD thing, but like, what's the KD ratio on the real warfare? How many troops did we lose?
Oh
in, like,
Jesus Christ!
and like, no, I mean, no, that's a real thing. And I'm like, I'm saying,
Really? You
hold
want
on,
to
hold on,
sacrifice
hear me out,
American soldiers of
no,
American
no,
families to
it's saving
cartels
lives.
in
He's
a
saving
foreign
lives.
country in
That's the
Mexico's
PG test, so
land?
that's why
I
he's
do have a
never
point there.
worried.
I do have a point there. Like,
Come on.
Al Qaeda has ceased to be an effective terrorist
We
group.
always
I
bring
don't-
up
hey,
Benghazi for the
Al-Qaeda
death of like
is
4
on.
American
Hey, let
soldiers.
Gibbs finish
And
and you can counter him. Go ahead.
No,
Gibbs, finish
so
your point, then you
listen,
can respond.
like the cartels are very similar to Al Qaeda at the time, right? Okay.
Yeah,
We went
yes.
in there, we dug Al Qaeda out by the throat, pulled them out of the ground. Al Qaeda is no longer the world's top terrorist. They're in shambles all over the world. They're losing people all the time. People have been overtaken by other groups. So yeah, there is some morphology factor to these groups, like the cartels and terrorist organizations. Yeah, you're right. And you want to talk about like we're getting whooped up on? You know, that's a false narrative. We lost lives in Afghanistan, but I bring up the KD ratio because Americans, for the most part,
You're a fucking
we're
predator.
doing. No, we were doing like we did very well. It's asymmetrical warfare, and they won basically by drawing out long enough that the American public lost, you know, the like stomach for blood. All right. So here's the deal: if we have to go into Mexico, we have to go do it on a local level. And you say, "Oh, we're sending people to die." Well, guess what? Every time an American soldier dies, stopping these people and saving people back at home.
brother, do you remember the Hydra example? What about the Taliban and ISIS, right? Didn't ISIS literally rise up because of like the entire American thing? Like, come on. The
It rose up for a
Hydra
litany of
example, right? You chop one head down, another head rises up. You
Yeah.
chop one cartel down, another 5 cartels rise up. Like, this is exact example over and over again. You're so stupid. Okay,
Wait,
whatever.
can I say?
Guy, my point real quick. Admiral Gibbs, are you so horny to deploy troops because you know you'll never pass a PT test and ever have to be on the front line?
Cool. Okay. Can I have a point I want to make? I have a point I wanted to make a while ago, but because I think the Taliban and all those examples are like a perfect comparison point. Because what did the Taliban do when we left? I mean, they don't need drugs to fund themselves, but as soon as we left, and as soon as there's enough of a power balance, they became the government, and that's kind of something that the cartel wants to do. I mean, they're trying to put people in politics and people in the police forces, and now they're becoming good friends with the Mexican government at the time, who explicitly says he wants a peace agreement with the cartel, even though the cartel is a violent criminal organization. He's treating them like a legitimate like political faction, and again they're just going to keep gaining power. This is why I have an issue with like you guys say that like decriminalize drugs and it'll just go away, but they don't just sell drugs. They like barter in power. They're gaining power. They have political power. They have physical power. They have military power. They have guns. You say that
No, finish, Hammer.
you're-
Hammer, finish your point.
you're saying that like we can like if we just like gun control, we can get rid of the gun shops. Well, they have so many guns, and to the point where they have like a legitimate military power. How do we get rid of that?
So I just want to. I got 2 things. Tiberius, the example you're bringing is like in the heat of the drug war, at the height of the United States' international influence, and I'm not entirely sure, totally probably with cooperation with the Colombian government, not just us saying we're going to do this thing, you can't say no. 2, as Mr. Hammer is kind of alluding to, at what point does this occupation end? Because that's what it would be, an occupation. We're going to be standing on street corners, knocking on doors, taking out people, interrogating others. It's not just a simple snap, grab, and drone strike. It's going to be complex.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Tiberius and Hammer.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. All right. So first thing is that you're not 100% off on this one. So excuse me. this would be a long-term thing. I'm not going to act like this is just going to be an in and out. Anyone who ever says military actions in and out is a dumbass. All right. Second of all, is that you are correct in that the best way forward for this is some level of partnership. Now, I think there's obviously some people in Mexico that we can partner with better than others. The question is, just straight out, is the federal government of Mexico complicit or implicit? Because there has been, and I'm trying to remind myself what the political parties are, but the PRI, which ran Mexico for 80 years, basically bought and sold the country to the cartels. And the cartels largely ran it as a government and just rented out entire provinces for ages. And then the people who replaced them back in about 2010, when they came in, were the ones who took the fight against them. I give serious credit to Mexico in the regard that they have actually tried to push back the front against the cartels. They have succeeded in some degree. The problem is that are we seeing a return of these stooges for the cartels that are becoming now a clear and present danger to the United States once again, in the same way that Colombia was?
Okay. So what I wanted to
go ahead, Hammer.
Sure. What I wanted to say is that, like, you're asking, like, when does it need to start, or like when does it end? And whatever happens, it is going to be a difficult, long process. But that's the whole point. Is that I'm like, we should be asking, when does this start? Because the longer we wait, the more difficult it's going to be. Because if we go now, like, my suggestion is we should just go in with a partnership of Mexico. Probably influence, like, political factions, so that the government isn't just like ran by stooges of the cartel, but like some form of partnership with them, so that we can, like, establish like the Mexican government in charge again. Whereas if we let things keep going, the cartel is going to replace the government, and we won't have any choice whatsoever about whether or not these are our enemies, because they'll be. I mean, they are our enemies right now. The Mexican government will become a government of our people who want to violent against us.
Guys, would you guys have advocated for doing military action against the mafia?
I mean, practically we did.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
Borders.
We use
U.S. border. You mean like
Yes.
Italian mafia?
Yeah, the Sicilian mafia. It was an international thing, and we
no
used law
military on
enforcement.
U.S. soil.
We use law enforcement abroad and here to end the mafia, and the mafia was way stronger
with
than
the cooperation of the
cartel
Italian
is.
government, though, right?
I would say we have more cooperation with the Mexicans today than we did with the Italians then.
Well, what I would charge, Hammer, is that instead of the United States employing the might of its military, the intelligence and the propaganda of its entire workforce, if we really want to do this, we have an amazing media empire to shower Mexico with convincing articles and documentaries and information to try and change the political landscape in Mexico, to at least make it marginally more favorable.
But then what the cartel does is they counter with videos of them chopping people's heads off that don't agree with them. That is
Hold up. I want to, guys, I want to
in media.
Is that going to be worse?
I want to
there's American troops rolling over the border and they're chopping hostages' head off.
No one
with us
well,
just saying,
maybe Gibbs is, but no one here. The
we're
serious
scoping it to
here,
drone stack.
The serious is, again, and we have drones. To be clear, we have drones that are like fucking sword drones now. They don't get a lot of civilian casualties from these. You just go in, the drone comes down, takes.
Wick, are you vying for a sponsorship from Lockheed Martin?
Exactly, Raytheon, Boeing, any of these.
Weapons.
If I can get paid by the military-industrial complex. Hell yes, I will get paid by the military industrial complex.
Sell the invasion into Mexico. Do it.
Can I please tag that?
Because I don't think it's to be clear, my personal opinion is probably not a good idea without the Mexican government asking us to. But to steelman the side here, right? It is a problem. Just getting rid of the war of drugs won't fix the problem, because the problem isn't the drugs. The problem is the cartels. Right? Drugs is the tool that they are using. But the cartels are going to be a problem, even if you get rid of drugs just across the board, right?
A quick counter to that is, if you're going to do this operation in any fashion and go after the leader of the cartels, all of the prices of the illicit drugs go way up, and that makes the amount of money they make go way up. And now
that's not how that works. That's not how that works.
He's kind of right here.
That's economical baby brain, and I'm saying that as a leftist.
Yeah, no, that's not good economics.
No, he's actually right
Yeah.
here. The problem is when you cut supply, you can charge more. That's just really how it
My
comes down to it.
question.
No, but
my
you
question
get
is, what if
lower
the Mexican
demand.
government says
Customers
no?
only have a limited amount of money.
No. The demand stays the same. The people
What?
using
No.
drugs still want to use them. You just have a much lowered supply, which
Let
means you got.
Let me address
Now-
that. And let me address another thing.
Now, if we do it hard enough to where we can suppress the amount of activity and sales they can do to where they can't even sell a single brick, but we can't even do that now with all of our fancy.
That's impossible in a globalized economy. Like most of the drugs come through legal channels. Like there's no way to stop drugs coming through. They can't keep drugs out of prison, and they look in your ass. Like how hard do you really want to go?
Let me just jump on that. All right. So two things. I want to say the supply and demand thing is really a moot point because of the second thing I'm about to say, right? So yeah, I'm not going to really argue the semantics whether we cut down the cocaine, the price goes up. I would even argue say we wipe out all cocaine everywhere, right, and the price goes way up. That's probably a good thing because it's going to lead to the second thing, which is the real problem, is these cartels are going to market something new to make up for their profit losses, and they're willing to do it at any rate. Like for example, their child sex trafficking and their normal sex trafficking has increased dramatically. They're funneling people into via illegal immigration because that is exploded. They've decided, okay, we're going to synthetic drugs because the marijuana market's getting harder. They're willing to expand into whatever they want. In some countries they have mining operations looking for diamonds. That's just not an example of Mexico, but in other countries they do that. Cartels will do anything, and as long as they exist and have the quasi-governmental power, and we're not digging them out, they're going to stay more and more entrenched and become more and more legitimate.
So,
And that's
so
what we
wait,
right
wait,
now.
wait, so
We're
let's
never
get
going to
this
solve
right.
Yeah, in the
You're gonna
50s.
carpet bomb their sex slaves as well when you're gonna go in
What?
with
No,
the
that's not the
B-52
point.
bombers.
No,
No.
I mean, I'm talking about their
Okay, yes.
firing facilities.
Hey,
But
no, you're absolutely correct. When the cartel is pressed for cash and they can no longer get money from their drug sources, they're going to seek other avenues, or maybe they just go totally legit, because I'm not sure they're actually being undercut on the weed business. I'm sure they're buying a lot of legal
it's
weed
both.
shots up here. Okay. But what also happens is you free up your enforcement. If you have decriminalization in the United States and you're not worried about catching every guy on the corner selling a baggie or smoking a joint, now you have a lot more enforcement power to go after very heinous crimes like child sex trafficking, very heinous crimes like weapons, or not very heinous, but heinous crimes like weapons. Weapons trafficking. You have so many more resources to address these problems, and it's a lot harder to do child sex than drugs.
Yeah, let's not pretend that right-wing people care about child sex trafficking, considering they're the number one customer.
I have never ordered a Wayfair cabinet, and I do not condone whatever was just said.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, I don't condone that.
I want to get into what Wick said just a moment ago regarding how one of the big things is that we're going to have to deal with is we try to play like the 𝕬𝖎s offensive or the 𝕬𝖎s offensive, and then you have like 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 new generation come in and just like cut a few people's heads off and then show all their neighbors. That's a little true. But actually, what's far more concerning for me with the cartels is actually what El Chapo did before we arrested him, where he actually came into communities and said, hey, look, we don't shit where we eat. Those people, those might be some of your customers, but they're also your family. You will take care of them. They actually worked as a quasi-government where they funded local institutions, like literally funding hospitals.
That's
very similar to what Hezbollah does in Lebanon. That's actually far more the concerning point to me, is
Frank
where
Lucas
people
did this in Harlem too, and the mafia did it. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your point here?
My point is that usually crime syndicates tend to try to legitimize themselves in the populace by doing like acts of charity. That's not like special. That like most places do that.
But that's fine. I'm saying here is that I'm more concerned about that than 𝕾𝖎𝖏 scaring the shit out of everybody. Because as bad as those folks are, at least we can actively say, hey, we're trying to help you, versus these folks are like, we are helping you. There's a big fucking difference in that.
I just have a question for the people who are arguing on like the pro-invasion side or whatever the fuck. Number one, all right, my first question to you is this. How the hell do you fight a decentralized system, all right? Number two, especially somebody without a figurehead or like a state of government or whatever the fuck, right? Unless you're talking about, oh, the government is the cartel, then sure, you then have to argue about fighting the Mexican government, which is like an entire argument entirely, all right? Number two, all right? Number two is, then, actually, I forgot number two. address number 1 first, okay? I'm not letting you get to number 2. Yeah.
You fight it
Okay,
with a scalpel.
can I?
Yeah, like,
I
go ahead.
America, well known for fighting with a scalpel.
no, I don't think we should fight with a scalpel. I think that how we
You're right.
fight
Collateral
against.
damage.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
with
instead of
with force, how do you fight a decentralized
no,
government?
not
Hammer
with force.
answers,
No,
maybe
not with
we'll find
force.
out. Hammer, go
No. The way you fight against the Mexican government, which is anti like dealing with the cartels, is by at least trying to exert like political force more than just media control, like going in there and like if we have to, making there be a new Mexican president so this can actually be solved. And then if we do that, once we do
that.
I think y'all need to realize something. I live here by like I deal with cartel crime regularly. Like I mean, not personally, but like
So do I.
here
I'm in Brownsville, Texas. Fuck
okay,
off.
cool. So I'm like from Corpus Christi, so I know. Like we had like one of the biggest busts ever. Like right outside Orange Grove a few years ago when I was in College Station going to A&M. They had some guy get chopped up, a student. Like I mean, we shouldn't have students in our cities being chopped up by cartels being run out of Mexico. You want to talk about decentralized forces? They have people giving them orders. We find them, we dig them out, we take them out, we work with the locals. That's what you got to do. I mean, yeah, they're going to have multiple people.
I think it's really important what Tiberius brought up about, well, I can't remember the acronym, but I do know the Jalisco Cartel. They're very flashy. They all got very nice pickup trucks, lots of mounted weapons and everything. But any good, well, let's call them fiefdoms, I guess. We can refer to them as empires, has a good propaganda machine. How do you think the Japanese were able to convince their citizens to be so ardent and special that they would fight to the very death? And 100 million lives for Japan was the slogan that they used. Well,
yeah. So wait.
Just, the Jalisco Cartel and these guys, they don't have a very strong propaganda wing. They just have a lot of guns and local control. They might provide them some level of protection and some level of leeway, but ultimately you cross the wrong person, you're not going to get any kind of justice through a legal system. It's most likely going to come from the end of a barrel. And I think that the alternative of the American propaganda empire to Jalisco Cartel and the other ones is you got a better chance.
Yeah, so I'm largely going to agree with you, but I want to separate this out. So there is a massive difference between dealing with Jalisco New Generation versus dealing with the Sinaloa. The Sinaloa, unfortunately, isn't. I hate that I'm going to say this, but Sinaloa is not as nice as what they used to be. Like El Chapo kept them on a pretty straight line and kept Jalisco under their aegis. So they
the devil,
Yeah, literally it is. Literally, should we have arrested El Chapo is one of the greatest ethics conversations of the last 10 years because everything went to hell after he got arrested. So anyway, the long and the short here is that number one, can we fight Sinaloa? I don't know. I straight up, because they are embedded with these communities and the communities like them. But when it comes to Jalisco, they literally just roll in, shoot a couple guns, and sometimes cut people's hands off. We can absolutely kick these people's ass and look good doing it.
I think that a really good option would be to bait the shit out of this, just like we do with Iran. We put Marines on our shipping boats and sent them through the strait and said, I goddamn dare you to shoot these. Let's just have a whole bunch of Marines go on vacation all throughout Mexico and see what happens. And if any of those babies
all the time, and it's called drug trafficking.
Let me make another point that's not been mentioned here. The cartels are actually deathly afraid of this. This is what they're afraid of. They're deathly afraid of U.S. Heavy-handed involvement. And I'll tell you, and I'll give you an example. No, and I'll tell you why I know this is true. They literally offered an apology when 2 American tourists were killed. They offered an apology because they feared what the United States response was going to be. Somebody mentioned Mexico's military. Mexico's military is going to roll over in 36 hours if we roll down there, in force. So they probably wouldn't, because Mexico's going to jump on the side of the winners, which is going to be the United States. Because even the cartels know that you don't punch Uncle Sam in the mouth.
Is that what that was? Punching 2 tourists dying and punching Uncle Sam in the mouth?
Then they apologized and killed them or turned them in or something right after.
Even though we kill far more Mexicans with our guns than they do with our fentanyl.
Yeah, but there's a Wait. There's a difference between invading Mexican soil to wipe out the cartels and trying to wage war and scare the cartels versus a cordial apology for killing 2 tourists just so you can try to maintain at least some cordiality with the US government or something. You know what I mean? Because
There's
at
no
this point you're not
causality between the
just some
cartels and the government, I
you're
can
not
tell you
just you're not yeah, but at this point, if your cartel gets big enough, you're not just some cartel, right? You're also like almost like a country of your own, right?
I mean,
Oh,
that's my
are
entire
you
point.
True.
are you saying the
Yeah,
United States
exactly.
federal government is nothing but a self-legitimizing cartel?
That's every single government and
Okay.
Bro, are
country
you
in the
kidding
world.
me? That's literally every single government. Yeah,
I know,
exactly.
that's
Yes.
why I said it.
We
Yes.
literally took
Yes.
over the U.S. natives,
you.
obviously.
Can I
Like,
see
what
a
else are you
fundamental
expecting me to
difference
say?
between the cartel
You're so
and the
stupid.
U.S. government? I think you've lost.
The U.S. government has killed far more people.
Wait, I have a question about something that happened before. Like, you said that Americans kill more Mexicans. Like, are you talking about like Americans going to?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone
Wait,
said
wait,
that.
Gun trade.
Gun trade. That's not the same thing. That's not the same thing as cartels coming into. No, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as cartel members coming in from their country into America and literally killing Americans.
And not only that, they're building tanks and stuff. Are they buying tanks from Home Depot and Walmart? They're literally building tanks and submarines to get this stuff over here.
So one cartel member from one cartel who was living in the United States killed American citizens on U.S. soil for maybe not even ordered to by Mr. Head Cartelli himself, right? And now we're going to justify special military operations in Mexico on all cartels. That's where we're going. There's not a codified, like, this cartel said they were going to do this. Oh, we're going to enact La Raza. Does anybody know what the La Raza shit is?
I know what the La Raza shit is. Can I ask a question? Maybe a temperature check for the room, just to see where everyone's head at. A show of hands if you think that the cartels, directly or indirectly, are killing American citizens. Show of hands.
Wait, directly or indirectly? Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, follow-up question. Do you think that it has become enough to warrant some sort of response, whether it be military or otherwise?
Some kind of response?
Yeah, like some sort of like
Obviously.
censure, maybe a sanction, maybe something, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Obviously.
So at what point, is there any point, for those of you against it, where this could escalate to a point where we say, okay, I know my arguments so far, but this is just too much. We have to go in, right? Because again, 70,000 Americans a year. So how many?
Nah, fuck them. They can die.
Wait,
that's just fentanyl?
Yeah, that's
fentanyl.
That's just fentanyl.
Well, the unilateral action would be justified upon providing proof that the Mexican government is cooperating directly with cartel leaders, such as if they were like all of a sudden deputize all the cartels when the U.S. is not going to do it.
That's also a nuanced thing too, because like when you work with the cartels, they're like, take this bribe or we'll kill you. Like, it's not like they like.
No, I understand. Yeah. And I'm not saying we're going to start drone striking heads of state just because they're forced to do something. But if we have verifiable evidence, not just top down, but whole departments of people knowing.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question to that. Like, at what level?
Before you ask the question, I want the answer to my question from Food Stamps and Ellen here.
I just want to know what level of government would you want to take?
At what point would I say like military action is because they're like
justified? Yeah, well, it has to happen, right? That isn't happening now.
I would have to say it would have to be like complicit with the Mexican government to like the point of like they can't do it themselves.
Okay.
I think that the current agencies, like the law enforcement agencies, are more than equipped though, and I don't think the military would make it better. I think that if anything, the military would create more avenues to traffic drugs back to the United States.
Okay, people are saying my mics. I'm gonna try to adjust the sound settings because people are saying my mics really low.
It's not yours.
It's not yours. Yeah.
Okay, wait. You know what I hate what I hate is like the fucking virtue signaling of like this fentanyl deaths thing, right? Is because the same motherfuckers who would say like, oh, this fentanyl death, we have to invade Mexico, are the same people who would never put any fucking regulations on the guns, on the gun stores, who would have the collaborations with the cartels to give them the same guns. Because there's only like, what, like 5 gun stores in fucking Mexico or some shit? And there's like a fucking billion gun stores or gun shows in America that have like cartel connections. It's so fucking, I hate this virtue signaling. These 70,000 Americans might just go die. I don't care anymore. All right, they can just go die. All right, I don't care.
Okay,
All right,
so there's no,
it's
to
so
be clear,
virtue signaling.
there's
It's so
no
virtue
point.
signaling.
There is no point at which you think the cartels could go too far, in which you think that the American government would be justified.
No, it's more about the hypocrisy. It's more about the hypocrisy because these same motherfuckers are literally so hypocritical. They're so hypocritical.
I can amend mine as well. I'll
Please.
add if they commit actual verifiable terrorist attacks, like we're the cartel, where now they fall under the actual international law.
Can I ask for a clarification on your stances though as well? I just want to know. Yeah, you said the verifiable government involvement. I want to know at like what level are we talking? Like it's got to be the president. It's got to be like a mayor. It's got to be county representative 5, like a governor. At what level of government? I
think you can do a litmus test for all the various levels. If the president and vice president and head members of cabinet are all in on it, you've got some pretty damn solid.
What about like a governor?
Yeah, and we can even litmus test those governors as well and their cabinets and do it by case, not just like, oh, we found one guy in this cabinet or these people who are under threat, but at large, if we find. We say like, hey, this city right here, Mexico, is straight up run by the cartel and is harming people. You need to do something or else we're going to start to take external political action, sanctions, or hell, we're probably already doing special forces operations.
Do you guys think that there's like a moral difference between like people taking, it's not like people, most of the fentanyl deaths are from heroin. And it's not like people take heroin not knowing it's dangerous. Do you think there's a moral difference in selling a dangerous product to people who want it versus like just indiscriminately like killing people?
Kind of.
Yeah, so like that's why I don't like the framing of like Mexicans are killing Americans. It's like, well, Americans are killing themselves with the disease of despair, and Mexicans are just selling it to them. I don't think it's that.
We have a terrible foreign policy. We've had a history of terrible foreign policy, like history from politicians, right? The thing is that there's so many things that we could do at home first before resorting to the nuclear option. Because I know somebody on this panel made an argument that we can do both things at the same time, right? That we can go abroad and wage war, and at the same time, we can do stuff at home as well. But that is not the case. That is actually not the case. I can tell you that. The reason is because if you actually go to another land and wage war there, that is actually a net negative, because that is going to antagonize other people while you're doing something in that other land that could actually have downstream negative effects. You're antagonizing the other government. You're spreading. Other people can like make videos of like people like American soldiers rolling in with tanks to turn that into propaganda. All right, even if they suck at video editing. All right, by the way. All right, other countries can look at the United States and go like, oh my God, this is it. This is the downfall of the U.S. government and their morals. All right, other first world countries, by the way. All right, the Russian government can be like, oh, see, this is the U.S. government and whatever, right? Dude, there's so many other, and then economic sanctions on the United States government. All right, nobody will be able to trust anymore. The UN will look down on that. Like, what else would you? I don't get it. I literally don't get you guys.
I don't think
stop. You're autistic. You're autistic. Points about propaganda. You need to stop. You need to stop with.
I'm really getting tired of the autist saying that you're running on Windows 95. This is getting fucking stupid. Like, you are clearly the most disconnected person on this panel. Shut the fuck up.
You need to shut the fuck up. Okay, you don't know what you're talking about. You're literally going to like, oh, we need to invade Mexico. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Okay, all right, you're so disconnected. Shave your head off right now.
I'm on your side, and I think you're kind of being out of pocket. Like, can you like comment down a little bit? 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘 from Death Note.
Sure. Let's reset a little bit. I want to touch on Ellen's point a little bit, because that's a good point, right? For the most part, the deaths that are attributable to the cartel are indirect. For the most part, they're not entirely direct free of death. But
True.
again, then it comes down to it. We don't have to kill cartel members. We can simply dismantle their production, right? We can target their infrastructure, because it takes some infrastructure to run the way they do. So
it takes a lot less
would
than you
that
think,
be
Wick.
okay? I understand, right? I understand. And I understand it's very decentralized, but there are actions militarily that we can take. Like, we have fought asymmetrical wars before, and as much as people poo-poo how we did in Afghanistan, the only reason we got out of Afghanistan is because it became too expensive, not because it wasn't successful, right? Taliban has no more ability to project force as they did, right? The reason we went into Afghanistan in the first place is because they had the ability to project force on American soil, or we thought they did, at least. We thought that Osama bin Laden was operating out of there, and then we were wrong, but that's what we thought. They were able to project force outside, and so we took in. Now they have no ability to project force outside. They have very little ability to feed themselves at this point, and we can argue the ethics of that. But at the end of the day, saying that we weren't successful in Afghanistan is kind of beside the point. We absolutely did what we originally set out to do. So I think we could do the same with the cartels. But I don't think we would need to invade Mexico. I think we could simply target infrastructure, target leaders, etc., like that. And I want to talk about that. So what do we think?
Can I respond?
Yeah, please.
I want to respond. Just the two things that make me think it wouldn't work. So one, there hasn't been an American conflict where lots of service members were just doing drug trafficking. If we go to Vietnam, we go
Thank
to
you for the raid,
Afghanistan.
Consul. Appreciate you.
So
If you look at Vietnam, you look at Afghanistan, there are noticeable supply shocks from when we left those countries in terms of the illicit heroin trade, which means only one thing: soldiers were bringing heroin home. Okay, and two, in the case of China, was the main supplier for England's fentanyl and stuff like that, and they managed to put in policies that completely cut China's fentanyl off. But now, in the United Kingdom, domestic fentanyl has outpaced Chinese production. So that's how decentralized it is. So even if we, as a country, invaded Mexico, one, we would create a lot more opportunities for drug trafficking, not create less. And then two, even if we were successful, domestic supply would just meet domestic demand.
To address that point that you made about the drug trafficking within the military. So they've actually recently done some studies, and I know that they've had some internal discussion with the military about how the cartels are actually sending people to go and train in the U.S. military and then leaving and rejoining the cartels afterwards. And while they're in there, establishing connections to bring stuff up. So you're absolutely right. We do have that problem that in the military. I agree. That's 100% correct. And you know what? The reason we have that problem is because the cartels are established enough in their own country that they're throwing foreign agents in, essentially, to come in and be learning from the U.S. And we don't have the power to stop them at the source. So as long as we don't have the power to stop them at the source, they're going to keep taking advantage of these holes like the military, keep taking advantage of these holes along the border, and we have to stop them.
I have two scenarios. What's more likely? The cartel is sending people in to get military training and come back, or job prospects for veterans are so dog shit that's why half of them are like a good chunk of combat veterans become homeless.
We already have convicted several people of doing that I would say it's probably both, but it's like, I mean,
I'm saying you could prevent, like, imagine you are a Mexican person, you got the chance to be in the United States military, that's a fast track to a United States citizenship. How dog shit are the job opportunities afterwards that you go back to the cartel?
I think you're underestimating how these cartels play on loyalty, family bonds.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
We have your kids.
The point I'm saying is we can have
and they say if you don't come back, and they say if you don't come back,
if
you don't come back, your wife and child, well, they're still in Mexico, buddy. Right? So yeah, you come back.
I think the thing you posit to us, Wick, touches on just the simple economics of warfare. You want us to, you said Afghanistan got too expensive. Well, it's pretty expensive to fly F-16s and have aircraft carriers and drop bombs on tents and small stone
Mexico's
buildings.
also as
Or a
mountainous as
trailer
Afghanistan.
car.
And
It's almost like we have 20 years.
Mexico-
I'm sorry. I
No,
apologize.
No, go ahead. What are you saying?
I was going to say, it's almost like we have 20 years of experience in fighting in this kind of environment. Like, we might actually be proficient at it.
And not only that,
Yeah, well,
but what do we have? What do we have as a trade-off economically? We do over $700 billion in trade with Mexico every year. How squelched is that going to become? And then we're going to be doing military expenditures dropping $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $25,000 katana Lockheed Martin missiles on relatively cheap infrastructure. How expensive is it to make drugs? Not very. How expensive is it to make a missile and a drone? Very.
Let me make an argument about this, though. Like, you're talking about Afghanistan, which is on the other side of the world, versus logistically, we can have people basically set as training missions, almost just fly them down there and take these people out. It's right there. It's within our flying airspace already. It's not like we're gonna have to spend more money on fuel, more money on logistics to get these like planes and airplanes over, build infrastructure in this country.
No,
we can do this. We can do this all from U.S. soil. So that's gonna reduce the cost drastically.
But yes, but well, I'm going to ignore
One of the other problems to piggyback on that is we already have a
can-
friendly, or at least options for a friendly government in place. We one of the problems with Afghanistan is we didn't know how they operated, the warlord structures, etc. We don't have that problem. We don't have those same issues when it comes to Mexico. We don't have the same things that caused Afghanistan to be a quagmire. That isn't to say it wouldn't become a quagmire, because you make very good points about how the cartel is embedded within Mexico pretty deeply. It would be a problem.
Yes.
It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks. There would be, again, this would be a years-long thing. But at the same time, to pretend it's going to be the same as Afghanistan, I don't know.
Do you know
would
what-
fear-
do you know
I
what's
would
so
fear-
disingenuous? Okay.
Why is that disingenuous?
No. What else is disingenuous is that I've never heard a single person on this panel bring up that we could just simply supply military weapons and funding to the Mexican government, provided that they are separate from cartels and provided that we have the agreement with them. But
So like we did with the Zetas? Like we did with the Zetas?
No, wait, let me finish. But yet, at the same time, we automatically assume that they are in allegiance with the cartels, and we automatically assume that they're not going to cooperate, and we automatically assume that they're already in bad faith. So we are just so gung-ho with the fact that we want to go to war. We are so gung-ho with the fact that we want to test out the carpet bombs. We're so gung-ho. It's like with the World War I scenario where everybody just wants to test out their weapons. Everybody wants to go to war. You guys are war hawks. That's what you guys are. That's it.
Okay, Hammer, go ahead.
Wait, I just have a response. First of all, it's not like not like anyone here would like disagree with that if we thought it worked. But second of all, you said that like we are assuming that they're allied with the cartels and they're not going to comply or they're not going to be into this. But the Mexican president says he wants to have a peace agreement with the cartels. He doesn't want to use weapons and monies and stuff to like fight against the cartels.
Why do you think that's
He
the
said
case?
this.
Why do you think that's the case?
It could be a multitude
The
of reasons.
answer is actually easy. The answer is actually really easy if you think about it.
So there's
If you
two
see-
possible
if you
answers.
see-
Okay, no, there's two possible
One
answers.
part
No.
answer.
Okay,
It's
if you're gonna be like that, Okay,
Just
there's
real
two
quick, I wanna
possible
hear-
answers.
Hey, stop. I hate to say
Hammer.
this, and I'm going to regret it, but I want to hear food stamps, one possible answer. And then I'll hear your
Yeah.
response, and I want to type
Okay.
your response.
The one possible answer is that if we look time and time again, for example, civilian rise-ups against the cartels, it has always ended in absolute disaster. Every single time there's a civilian rise-up in Mexico, by the way, not funded by the US military, in Mexico, every single time they are crushed. Some father has a civilian rise up, their son is killed, executed, then the father is executed, then every single one of the civilians are executed, all right? Then every single time the town rises up against the cartels, every single one of them is destroyed, decimated, and entire town massacred, all right? Then suddenly, entire school bus of students massacred, executed, one by one, all right? The police executed, massacred if they don't make a deal with the cartels. The local government executed, massacred if they don't make a deal with the cartels.
It's almost as if
Wait,
the Mexican government
no, I was next.
This is the most famous example. This is the most famous example. Wait, let me bring on the most famous example. There was just one time, all right, when the military police came in, captured the leader of the cartel, like a very large cartel guy, all right, sure, and he was very calmly held hostage, all right, and then at first it was peaceful. After they were like victory, all right, and then they waged war in that city for 3 days or 5 days or so, and then they took a video of that. It was a very haunting video. Then they traced every single cop in that video down from that body cam footage, and they executed every single cop just from that body cam video. All right, done.
Okay,
done.
So
all right,
just
there you go.
before anyone else says shit, my question would be, given that we have example over the Mexican government being unable to deal with this shit and the civilian population unable to throw off their oppressors, wouldn't it be nice if they had an outside power that was much more strong than them, much more able, willing to back them up and come in and say, we got your back, buddy, right? I'll be your battle buddy for the day. We'll add our power to your power and we'll take them on.
Wait,
together.
no, wait. I want to respond. So what I want to respond is, you said there is one obvious answer that I don't know if I was being like disingenuous or whatever. Maybe I just took that the wrong way. But I can think of 3 answers. First of all, the president is too proud to accept aid from America. I mean, that seems ridiculous, but it's happened over and over again throughout history. Second of all, he's a crony of the cartel, which we're not quite sure about, but it is a possibility. And the third one is the one you mentioned. The third one is the one that you mentioned, that they just don't think that they have the force. They don't have the ability, even if they had our guns and weapons, to stand up against the cartels, which goes against the point that you were making. You were saying we should just send them weapons and stuff to like help them out, but you just also made a counterpoint to where that wouldn't work, and we would need actual troops on the ground.
I want to hear from Tiberius before anyone else. I want to hear from Tiberius, and then you can go, Gibbs. Go ahead, Tiberius.
Just clarification. I had to mute somebody because I have sanity preserved, but I will reply to what our good friend Mr. Hammer was saying in regards to like certain people we can work with. Yeah, there might be a very real reality to where we cannot work with the Mexican federal government, but I definitely think there's levels to where we can peel off, where we can be like, hey, governor of Nuevo Leon, hey, governor of Sinaloa, hey, governor of Baja, like, can we work with you? Like, excuse me. I'm all sputtered. All I'll just say is this. When it comes down to like the relationships that we have built, particularly with NAFTA and NAFTA 2, is that North Mexico has boomed because they have basically been tied into the Texas and California economies. They are more American, economically speaking, than they are Mexican. Like, the roads don't go south, they go north. And so there's a level to where like we can not only leverage that if we want to be dicks, but on the other side, we can just be like, hey, you guys are more on board with our ship than you are with ours. Let's take the fight to the people who are fucking you over. I think there's many ways to play this, but I will not digress from my opposition here that we can totally fuck this up. And that's where I'm like, hey, we need to play our cards right. We need to be intelligent about this. If we're going to hit the bomb, we're going to like smack somebody's face. That's why I said we need to use a fucking scalpel. We don't want to just come in here and kill a shitload of people with a B-52. Sorry, my friend. But we might want to, come in with SEAL Team 3 and fuck some few people's up on behest of some friends that, are giving us some good intelligence, because they might not be able to trust some of the people that are working with them, or they might not have the competency because literally some of these folks that they are going up against are literally trained paramilitaries. I think that's a good point.
So I think there's a 2-part reason that I actually am taking a much stronger response than Tiberius, and I think that food stamps actually gifted our side here. This one right here, and it's whenever they said about like, oh, we can just go in there, train some people up, support them with weapons or whatever. Hey, guess what? I got some news for you. I don't know if you know recent history about this, but there's a whole new cartel that's maybe one of the most dangerous ones. That we did exactly that. They were literally the troops that the U.S. government came down and we trained and supported them, and they left as a group and became their own cartel. It was the Zetas, and they're very dangerous. They're very bad, and they're using military tactics, and other cartels are now adapting to those tactics. So the reason I'm taking a much stronger response to saying we need a B-52 their infrastructure, we need to work with local people, we need to send troops on the ground, is because their government is so corrupt at the middle and local levels that nothing short of widespread like invasion and like coming down at the ground level and digging these people out like Hydra and cutting off every single head and salting the earth is going to get the job done.
There's a
Okay.
big
No, I
difference.
want to hear
Hold
from
on,
Ellen.
on.
I want to hear from Ellen. Ellen.
Okay. Emerald Gibbs, like this is like a real honest question. After we left all those interpreters in Afghanistan, why should a Mexican citizen work with the U.S.?
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I have some friends that were some of those interpreters left, so I'm very sympathetic to that argument. However, I would say that the argument is a lot of these people, as we see like in North Mexico, that we're seeing a lot of the vigilante groups fighting against the cartels are showing that they're tired of the cartels and the corrupt government rule.
Okay, that wasn't really like an answer to my question though. Like, if I'm a Mexican citizen and I look at
They
the
want to take
history,
back their country. They want to take back their country.
oh yeah, but if I look at the history of working with America, like being an ally, how many times have we left people just high and dry? That we're just going to leave them to the cartels.
I mean,
the same
and then
way
for
we,
every example you say of that, we have Japan.
okay,
You know,
like,
we got. I mean, Japan's doing wonderful after our occupation. You know, there's a lot of examples where we've left countries better, arguably.
well, that's where we like won, but if if Japan went bad, we would have just left all the interpreters there, and they would have all gotten killed by, I don't know, the second coming of Hirohito. Like, the whole point is that if I'm a Mexican person, why the hell would I rat on the cartel to a country that is known for leaving interpreters to the wolves?
You want me to answer? Let somebody else go. I can't.
Whatever.
Yeah, if anyone has an answer for that, please.
Yeah, I'll actually dig into this. I totally get where a lot of people want to compare Afghanistan and Mexico, because there's definitely some like qualifications here. Very similar geography, somewhat similar climate, yada yada yada. I think the difference here is very much culture. Straight up, we are talking about Afghanistan that is basically an Islamic feudal state that we came in to try to crash and then like build something of our institutions and mirror that. That shit didn't work in Iraq and it didn't work in Afghanistan because I don't think we really understood the cultural context at all. It's just too far removed. When it comes to Latin America, just in general, is that I think we've kind of screwed the pooch on a few of these issues, largely because we keep picking assholes to fucking side with. But when it comes down to it, though, these are people that we do largely understand. They are like, of Christian denomination. They have like a general level of like liberal democracy, or at least that they are aspiring to become. Like they like capitalism to some degree, yada, yada, yada. I don't think this is a far stretch to say like these are kind of more like brothers in arms versus somebody that we really just don't even have any kind of interaction with prior to 9/11. I will just simply state it straight out as that. We are talking about apples and oranges in that regard.
Yeah,
and I wanted to.
We wouldn't really need. Why does in chat makes a very good point. Why would we need interpreters in Mexico? There are so many people who speak Spanish.
I don't think
That's the Texans to do it.
Yeah.
That's not his point. That's not his
I
point.
mean, informant, like that's what I
No.
mean.
No,
I
like
ain't going
I'll-
He
nowhere.
needs an ally.
Right.
He needs an
So-
allies. Any allies we use, basically. He's not
Yeah,
Not
And
I'm
it's
not
not
literally. Yeah,
I
and
got
I'll
what you
know
were trying to say.
Yeah, and I'll forward that a little bit into what he's going on. Like, have we just kind of dipped out of some fights that we really shouldn't have? Yeah, like if there's anything that I fucking hate Trump for when it came to his foreign policy was abandoning the Kurds for the Turks. Fuck that shit. But on the other side of that is there are some geopolitical calculations that went into that where I can like understand what the hell that was doing. So we'll table that part. But when it comes down to some of these things, is the United States super consistent? I'd say, if you want to be fair about it, you're probably looking at a 50-50 shot. We do really well with Asians, we do really well with Europeans, but for some reason, if you tend to be of a certain skin color, it tends to not go as well. I will absolutely play that card because there is that correlation. I don't know if that's something that's going to work when it comes to that. However, when it comes to like a heritage thing, when it comes to like cultural ties, reasons why we would want to be in this fight. Number one, it's our back door. Number two, literally half of Texas is family to these folks. And more importantly, number three is that Mexico prospering means that we prosper with them, and vice versa. It is within our interest to do good here. Whether or not Washington understands that, open debate, because right now our politics is junk. But I think there's a real possibility for America to do some serious good here.
Tiberius, how do you think that this kind of military action would impact the refugee crisis and the immigration crisis that's currently going on? Is it going to significantly worsen it? Are we going to batten down the hatches and finish the wall? What's going to happen?
Oh, this opens up way too many can of worms. I will put it this way: we can totally fuck it up to where 10 million Mexicans just flood across the border.
Yeah.
Let me
That's
jump on
worst.
that.
That's let me just finish this real quick. That's worst case scenario. I would think it is. Like worst case scenario is we
the
destabilize.
Mexicans here. The Mexicans here.
I miss having 24-hour Walmart. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want 10
Christ,
million
guys.
Mexicans to come back.
All right, look, let me just finish this real quick. All right, first and foremost, the worst case scenario is we destabilize Mexico to where it actually is worse, where most of our allies don't want to be our allies, and when it comes down to it, the cartels actually gain more power because of our involvement, in which case a shitload of people all the way throughout Latin America come up here. Like 10 million people across the border within 2 years. Absolutely worst case scenario, but I see that as a possibility. Don't think that is super likely, but we can absolutely get into some of those numbers. What I am far more afraid of is that we can actually do something to where we split Mexico in two. That's actually where I kind of play that calculus to where do we actually just take...
Just balkanize Central America?
Not balkanized, but
I mean, it already is
separate
balkanized.
north and south. They're already very separated north and south.
Like
Mexico.
literally North Mexico is almost a separate functioning locality compared to Central and Southern Mexico. There's for a number of reasons why of this that literally goes back to the fucking Aztecs. I'm not going to go all the way down that road, but I will simply say in the regards that if we can play our cards right, we could literally, and I'm not bluffing here, we could probably convince a couple Mexican states to outright join our union instead. But we would have to do it correctly. And I don't know if our leadership's up to that task. That's a big if.
That we would even want. Like that.
No,
that
I don't want
seems,
that.
That seems like a non-starter locally in America. I want
cheaper drugs. Let's do this. Like, let's go.
No, I think
let's take over these.
Wait, I'll put it this way: like the American right's not going to be in favor of that. Like we can already write them off. The real question I would have to be is for the American left. Because like I could totally see them like falling over themselves to virtue. It's like, hey, we're going to have more states. They're going to vote Democrat, yada yada yada, and then of course watch 10 years from now they'll vote Republican.
If they think that Mexico would vote Democrat, they would probably do it.
Yeah.
So this would be like Stephen F. Austin 2 Texas Boogaloo.
We've been here before, gentlemen.
Okay.
We've been here before.
Let's hear some
American
responses
blood
to
on
this.
American
Go
soil.
Mexico is weirdly more progressive than the United States in some areas, especially regarding trans rights, which is weird. It's not the thing I would expect. I had that brought to my attention.
It's really weird. They're usually more economically leftist than us. They like most of Latin America is, but on the other side of that, like they are hyper social conservative in some areas.
Some areas,
like
Mexico City is like, isn't it like in the top 10 like megalopolises in the world, and it's like pretty affluent.
It's our size, yes, and like all the West. I'm going to tangent for just a second here. All the West is having the same politics problem at the same time. Whether you are literally in Germany or Spain, the United States or Mexico or Argentina, is that all the urbanites are getting together and they're like having a political faction versus all of like the ruralites and the suburbanites. And it's just really weird because for some reason, it's like once you cross that threshold of population density, your politics completely flip on its head. That's why our politics sucks right now. Like, we can't get the people who live in the sticks to get along with the people who live in the burbs. And until we fix that, whether you are in Mexico City or whether you are in, like, Los Angeles, that's going to be a problem. And it's a problem everywhere.
Going to the suburbs. One thought, okay? Right and left coming together.
Don't get me wrong, I love the burbs, but that's a whole other conversation. Sorry I lost you, Wick.
I'm listening. I'm just I want people to I want people to kind of address this, right? Like this idea of what a world looks like. Other than so let's take military. I'll try this. Military off the table. Off the table. We're not going to deal with this military, but something has to be done, and we can't just handle it domestically. even if through our best efforts, even if we ended the drug war, even if we made a whole lot of leaps and bounds, we still have, I would consider them a hostile actor in the south border who is looking to make money and profit, even at the cost of American lives. And that is a problem for us. So, military action off the table. What do we do? What do you think? And I'll let Hammer go first.
I think Tiberius had like probably the best idea that I've heard is that we should like have like American diplomats go to if we can't deal with the president, then we can send them to like different governments and try to get them on our side, and then that way we can like
different governments. Like, what do you mean?
Or governors. Yeah, governors.
Okay.
And then we can bring them to our side, and then we can like hopefully get people voting to implement a different president, different government, different like policies to be a little bit less pro cartel.
Any other takes on
Pro
this?
cartel.
If I was sorry, go ahead.
What is the question? How do we do it without military response? That what
Yeah,
you're saying?
like for whatever reason, military is just not going to
Just law
work.
enforcement.
We can't get.
Wait, is this closing statement?
What do we do?
I refuse to believe that if we really wanted to go in there, we couldn't fabricate some evidence or find some kind of situation to justify it to the international community and do it anyway.
Absolutely.
That being said, I also don't think that there's any way we couldn't negotiate with Mexico itself and other Latin American countries to get some kind of level of cooperation and commitment to this problem, especially employing U.S. intelligence services to gather the material that we would need to convince that. Most of it's already out there on LiveLeak, but beyond that, I think the risk, just like Trump said, no, why would I go to the polls? I'm up 70%. The risk of actually going and doing these kind of operations without walking up to it, not just Ron DeSantis or Ramaswamy gets in office and we're doing the thing. It's gonna be seriously bad for everybody involved.
I don't know. So I
mean, my response to the question is there's we can't go in there without military action. That's the answer.
Okay, so this problem is just unsolvable without some sort of military investment. I don't think I agree with the USDA that I think that if we don't have some level of popular support, whether it be even just a sizable minority who would be okay with it, right? I'm talking 40% of the country.
Hey,
I don't think that
US
I'm
goes in.
gonna go for a second. I'll be right back.
Sure. I don't think the U.S. goes in at this point, right? Like I think
you're
that
talking about
unless
approval from the U.S.
yeah,
population?
local support, like domestic support. Unless there is some form of domestic support, politicians just don't take this action, right? Now they will probably try to convince us. They'll probably run a propaganda campaign and things like that. But unless it passes a certain threshold, they just, it's unfeasible. No politician's going to pull the trigger on that. They'll never keep their job. And so again, it is a problem. We need to fix it. I'm just not sure how. And it is getting to the point. Again, my stance currently, I don't think we're at that point yet. But there will come a time when maybe drone strikes or limited action might be something I'd be on board with. I'm not there yet. But there will come a point when there is enough death, destruction, and chaos that is happening both within Mexico's borders and spilling over to ours, that I'd be like, okay, maybe it's time to act.
Let me address that because this kind of really ties into back something that we said a little bit right before you changed the question, which was we were talking about the border crisis with the migration, the mass migration and whatnot, and all that. If it's going to turn to a refugee crisis, and I think that's once again another reason why I think I'm disagreeing with Tiberius on the amount of intervention needed. I think he's absolutely correct on why it's a problem though, which is we could make this way worse and it could just flood the borders, and that would be awful. But I want to say that we're already have the borders flooded. And a major reason for that is the human trafficking and the cartels assisting all these groups and taking money from them and coyoteing them and all these things. And so if we don't address this real source, the immigration crisis is going to only continue to grow worse and worse because they're taking advantage of these people from other Central American countries and trafficking them up here. So as a refugee crisis, if we don't do anything, we sit on our hands, it's going to get worse. If we go in there and do it wrong, it's also going to be worse. So we need to go in there and do something, though, if we want to actually have real results in stopping this.
Now the
Can I
question.
reply?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay,
Do it.
wait, wait,
I'm
Okay,
curious,
so I want
curious.
to, yeah, I want to reply to that real quick because, like, a lot of the right is very concerned about the immigration crisis, which I don't dissuade from. There's some nuance there as far as my takes, but I'll just put it in this regard: 10 years tops, and we're done with it. And the reason why is because the same thing that's been going on in the Western world, now the developing world's doing. They stopped having kids about 10 years ago. And the thing we've already figured out is that a lot of these folks that come over are between the ages of 15 and 25. And we're already getting to that point where they're running out of 15-year-olds to send. Like, literally, just by their sheer demographic weight and data, we know that this is going to be something that's gone by 2030.
Okay.
Or it's going to drastically reduce as far as Latin America. Like,
Got it.
Asia might be a conversation later.
Any more thoughts on this? And I have another question for the panel.
I
Go
do
ahead.
I do have a thought on the specifically the drug thing.
Please.
The thing is, we shouldn't be concerned with Mexico enough to like solve all of the problems concerning with the cartels, but just enough problems just so we could fix the domestic policies abroad in the United States, and specifically the ones with like fentanyl, I guess, right? But I know we talked about this on another panel with Portugal and the policies in Portugal and their specific drug policy program. And I know that they failed more and more drastically after they cut the funding after I think 2012 or something like that. But before 2012 or 2014 or so, their drug decriminalization program was running perfectly fine. They only started locking up people and charging people for crimes relating to drugs after they have provided time and time again that, oh, you are choosing on purpose not to get help. You're choosing on purpose not to get drug recovery. If we had a program like that in the US and we ramped it up over time, then I really do think that we could start getting people help in the US for fentanyl addiction, for heroin addiction, and we can start to get people off of the opioid crisis that started so many years ago and ruined so many lives. And the fact that we haven't tried that yet, but then we have Republicans talking about invading Mexico. You know, we have people on this panel talking about invading Mexico or doing even drone strikes is unfathomable to me and monstrous. So I don't know anymore. So
Okay.
so yeah, that's just my point. That's it.
Got you. On that note, actually, recently the whole reason we're having this panel is because this got brought up during the Republican national primary debates, on a question, I believe it was about Ukraine. They started talking about this. So my question to especially those who lean conservative, is this not simply being used as a distraction from Ukraine and Russia's incidents, a way to look like you're strong on foreign policy while simply wanting to just withdraw support from Ukraine entirely? Is this not just kind of a distraction? And why or why not? Go ahead.
Wait, do you know our policy? Do you know our positions on? You don't even know if we all agree or not or disagree, right?
If you disagree, tell me. I'm curious. I'm asking the question for a reason, right? Do we think this is a distraction? Why or why not? That's the question. And if you think why, if you think it's a distraction, you can tell me why. If you think it's not a distraction, you can tell me why not. So I'm asking the question. Maybe everyone agrees. I don't know. That's why I'm checking.
Oh, Ukraine based. Fuck Russia. Yeah,
No,
what the
no,
fuck?
Again, I'm
I-
not talking about.
Yeah.
Russia, I'm
I got
talking
you,
about.
Rick.
Okay.
Does anyone else understand my question? Am I
Yes,
crazy?
yes.
I get it. I get it.
Okay.
I
We got you.
understand.
We got you. I was just waiting.
No, I don't quite
Wi-
understand.
So
Sure.
I think it's possibly totally a distraction, but I think that the Republican Party and its primary is so scrambled you can't really freaking tell. We've only had one debate, and this was a little bit. I don't know if this was a little bit out of left field for anybody hearing like we're going to take military. It was a little left field to me, and I
It
live here
was.
in Texas, and so I think it is something that they're saying like, oh, we can take this part from Trump and use it to boost our campaign rather than I think it is a diversion. I think they just want an excuse to reason out why they're stop supporting our European allies. I think that's exactly what it is.
Tiberius.
I strongly disagree with this, actually. A lot of people within the Republican camp are still like those old neocon war hawks. Pence is one of them. We've seen a number of those guys say it on stage. It's like, we're going to do both. Haley, another one of them. And I'm kind of on board with that as well. Is that while I think we tend to go at some certain shit with a hammer instead of a scalpel, and we need to like fine tune our instruments here, is that I do believe in like using American prominence and force when necessary to achieve the geopolitical ends that we want to see. Now, can we fuck that up? Yeah, we've done that for 20 years now, like particularly in the Middle East. But on other grounds of that, we've seen it have incredible success, whether it's post World War II, whether it's dealing with a lot of some certain obscure. Yeah. Whether it's dealing with certain countries in Asia, there's definitely levels to where we can prove that this is something that we can make work effectively. I do not actually see this as a distraction. If anything, I distinctly remember hearing the words, "We can do both," from both Pence, from both Haley, and I'm pretty sure even Christie was on board with that conversation.
Oh, so
and I'm one of
the
them.
candidates who have no chance and absolutely zero chance of winning the nomination. Got you.
I also
do
don't
not
think
crush
they're
my soul
talking-
here, okay?
I also don't think they're talking about doing both, as in the military operation in Mexico and Ukraine. They're talking about doing the Ukrainian support and spending money on like veterans and homelessness and things within the borders of the United States.
Well,
but again, like Wick said,
yeah,
they're candidacy.
no, if you just for the nuance, I think the way they were framing it was supporting Ukraine by like sending them arms, money, and ammunition versus like sending federal troops to the border was like the specific talking point.
So,
But I don't think it's
if it was
far off.
If I
troops to the
remember
border, that
correctly,
makes sense.
just to kind of and let me get a sanity check in case I totally miss this. But as I remember it, the question was about Ukraine, and instead of like, hey, we're supplying all this money when we could be, and I think Vivek specifically said this, when we could and should be looking at the fentanyl crisis and the cartels, and then DeSantis backed him up and said, yeah, the cartels are the more serious threat. We need to go into that instead of. It's not a in addition to, but an instead of. So DeSantis and Vivek, who I would consider the two, after Trump, the two kind of biggest dogs in the fight.
No, like that was the split. No, that was the split between the MAGA candidates and the neocons. Like the older school, like neocons, like Pence and whatnot, were very much like, we're gonna do both. Versus the MAGA candidates were like, no, we're gonna do the America first. We're gonna look at our front door. Like that was the defining difference.
You can't say you're America first if you're just still planning on being a war hawk. The only reason they don't support Ukraine is because they like fascists. Like that's the only reason.
Oh Jesus fucking!
I don't know if that's true.
I'm not even gonna touch that. But
wait, what did you just say?
I said the only reason the right wing wants to stop funding Ukraine is because they don't want to outwardly say they support Russia.
Maybe just maybe it's not because they overwhelmingly love Russia as much as the fact that Kiev is fucking 6,000 miles away and Mexico City is 400.
Oh well,
Jesus Christ,
let's not
dude.
talk about the geopolitical implications of Russia controlling all of the black soil in Europe. Like,
hey, look, I think these guys are a bunch of retards. Straight up, I fucking hate the MAGA leadership because I think straight up, as a center right Republican. Like these people don't understand the greater geopolitical implications of what they're advocating for. All right, Trump's a moron on a lot of different issues, like Vivek and folks. I
don't make really like a separation between people who like consciously support fascism and are like too dumb to realize they're supporting fascism. I don't really make a difference.
I mean, am I supporting fascism by
Jesus
buying
Christ.
iPhones from China? Is that supporting fascism?
that's supporting communism. That's for sure. There. I mean, there's at least that.
They're not really
It's
communist.
supporting state capitalism, which is class collaboration,
with a
which is
president
pretty
for
Okay.
life.
I want to jump on this
Go
because
ahead.
Mobile death squads.
so you
Yeah.
know I think that
I hate China too, buddy. I think you misunderstood me.
I feel like Tiberius kind of hit the nail on the head. There is a faction of the MAGA conservatives that are like that, and I definitely feel fall in the more traditional, I guess, warhawk neocon role, and I guess at least in this debate, because why wouldn't we do both? We're the military industrial complex. Our export is war. That's what the U.S. is good at. That's what we export. We export military arms. We export whoopings. Here's who needs a whooping. The cartels, they need a whooping. That's who needs one right now, all right? So what we need to do is go down there and take care of business. And for y'all to act like they can't do both, it's just crazy. And
Yeah,
y'all
so
act like that's not
out of
going to
It's just going to create more
But
drugs.
as for
out
the
of
question of whether it's not a
Afghanistan.
diversion is really a misnomer.
Hold on. Before you ramble on for longer,
Well,
right?
no, I'm
So
addressing
we
Rick's
pulled
question.
out of Afghanistan after 20 years just to do another Afghanistan, really?
I mean, but it's not going to be another Afghanistan because if
Why
Mexico's
would it be
along
any
the border,
different?
wasn't going to
it's
be another
logistically
Why
Vietnam.
would it be any different? I thought we were past this.
It's logistically and culturally different. On first of all, we have trade relations
Culturally
on a much
different?
higher different. Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons I could list that could show why
Is
it's
it
a
the
different
food?
situation in Afghanistan.
The tacos?
Yeah, it's definitely the food. Yeah, that's the only reason. No, but as for your question, Wick, on the distraction thing, I don't think it's purposely a distraction. I think that the hot button issue is much more with the DeSantis and Vivek is definitely the crisis along the border. And I'm not sure that people realize that's a much harder hitting home question for the average American that's voting in the Republican primary than say the war that's happening, umpteen million miles away between two countries we don't give a shit about, and then we're just I mean I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, but Russia's been an adversary forever. So anything that's bad for Russia is good for the U.S. and Ukraine. Well, that's still basically Russia, so let them fight. And why not let NATO do some more work for us for once? I mean, why? I mean, we're always sitting here saving them.
Wait, the
having this
US
wild
is
thing.
NATO.
So why? Yes, yeah, exactly. But there's how many other countries? Why do these are their
They've
borders?
been giving shit too.
Russia's the one that's aggressing on them on their soil. Why don't we let them fight their battle for once, and we step in when we need to instead of having to lead the way every single time?
Other
Wait, they
allied
are,
NATO
though.
members,
They're
other
supplying
allied
plenty of military shit all the time. What are you talking about?
other allied NATO members are currently bearing the most significant
Finally,
brunt of they are
finally.
now.
They're supplying weapons all the
first
fucking time.
Like, what if if you're combining all of the EU together,
Yes.
you might be
Yeah.
getting a parity? Like,
And
I gotta double
it
check.
may only be like 51% parity too.
Right, I was gonna say, like,
What are you on right
for
now?
a while there, we were just blowing all of NATO out of the water. Like, literally,
Yeah.
we were at 2/3 of all the things. Now,
Up,
like,
up until
Well,
we gave
like,
to
the leopards
point-
and shit.
The
formal
point
support.
here, the
Right.
reason that recently NATO and the EU NATO has taken a lot more kind of war hawkish stance to supplying Ukraine is because, well, Ukraine is on their backyard. It's their Mexico, right? It's their
Right.
Mexico. It's literally right there for them. So obviously, they're going to take that more seriously than they have before. And so, does this not just speak to the argument made by Gibbs and Tiberius to a lesser extent that, again, we should care about this more because it's right there. And locality, the world has gotten smaller, right? But travel distance still matters at the end of the day. Go ahead.
Also, even more
Let
reason
me be back
Ukraine
in
is
1
winning.
second.
All right, so let's be clear.
I
about that.
will. Sorry. I will simply suffice that I'm actually far more interested in fighting the Russians in Ukraine than I am with Mexico, because I think that that's something that is like an easy fuck up for us when it comes to actually engaging with the Russians. This is kind of a blank slate. We have people who very much like us in that argument. They're putting up a hell of a fight, and if we can actually finish that, all the better. But unfortunately, we
I agree.
risk a nuclear
I
war
agree.
if
No,
we
I
do
think
that.
most of us here would agree that the argument for supporting Ukraine is far, far stronger than any argument for taking down
Do
the
you guys want to
cartels.
some
That's
like
an
funny?
existing fight
Let me
because it's
finish
an
it,
existing
please. Let
fight.
me finish my point here. It's
Oh.
simply because, again, Ukraine is united in this and that they want to expel the invaders. We have a clear moral high ground here where Ukraine is being aggressed upon in a way that we haven't seen in Europe for a long, long time. And third, right, Russia has been our traditional enemies, our traditional adversaries, and we have a lot of reasons to try to stop their expansion because it sends signals to other adversaries we have, such as China and Taiwan. And so preventing Russia from being successful in Ukraine very much makes it far less likely that China will do anything directly to try to do reunification by scooping up Taiwan back into its panda's paw, right? And I think that, again, there's these 1,000 arguments for Ukraine that Ukraine is kind of the battle of our day. It is
fuck
the
conservatives.
reason to tear. But when it comes to, and I use that phrase wrong, apologies for anyone watching the VOD. But if we are looking at the cartel issue, I don't think it's there yet, but there will come a time and there will come a day, if the trajectory continues on the way it's going, where the Mexican government is now going to be indistinguishable from the cartels, and I want to figure out a way to deal with things if and when that happens, and hopefully prevent it from happening in the first place through other measures. That's why I held this panel today. But we've gone to all sorts of places. We've gone all over the stage here. But just any more thoughts on the Ukraine Russia issue before we move off of that, please?
I mean, it's almost like them being our traditional ally also invokes the fact that for the past 60 something, 70 years, we've built up our entire military complex to counter Russian and Chinese weapons. And now we've just put them in the hands of Russian killing clones. And dude, this is Ukraine's Order 66 moment. And we just gave them all of the tools necessary to kill Russians.
Based.
Okay, back to the matter at hand. I guess for those against military action at this present time, do you think that we should withdraw support that we are giving to the Mexican government currently? Because we are giving some measure of support, right? Should we just stay out of it entirely?
What's the nature of the support?
I couldn't tell you specifics, but we are
Let me
advisory
search it up.
intelligence, mostly intelligence, right? Where we feed intelligence to them, like, okay, this is what, the big hotspots, etc.
I
I
think
don't
we
know
also
exactly. I can't tell you exactly what we're doing today, this second, but I know that I can tell you for real, right, that we have done this in the past, where we've, hey, cartel leaders, the X, Y, and Z.
And I'm pretty
They
sure
are.
through NAFTA we have formal law enforcement cooperation agreements,
Absolutely.
but not military.
Oh, well, that comes into another thing. Let's talk about the borders, actually. And I think this is probably a better question. We're talking about
Immigration?
domestic defense at this point. Do we send military troops to the borders? Why or why not?
No.
Not to go over, right? But just to
I mean, the
control
Pentagon.
flow of things.
The Pentagon is already pulling people away from the mission right now because there was an expected migrant surge because Title 42 was coming to an end, and in the days leading up to it, border agents had 10K migrant encounters a day, and immediately after Title 42 expired, the number dropped to 5 encounters a day. I was actually trying to email the journalist to figure out why there would be less people after Title 42 expired. If anybody knows the answer to that, I'd really want to know.
Are you talking about encounters with
Migrants in general.
migrants in general? Well, yes, because if you have less people, they're going to encounter less migrants, right?
No. I'm talking about the end. They had the surge for the end of Title 42, and directly after the end of Title 42, the opposite happened. What they projected. I want to know if anyone has a good answer why.
I actually might be able to answer that.
Please.
This is more of a guess because I'm waiting to get some data that won't be out until the end of the year. But it looks like that all of what was backlogged from COVID, where you had a lot of people remaining in Mexico to get up through here, or throughout all of Latin America, had finally started pulling through whenever the lockdowns had all ended. And they didn't give a shit about Title 42. They were going to come here regardless because once America's economy started opening up, that's jobs. Let's go. When it just came down to it, like, everybody's here now. But that's just the data that I would go off of because I don't have it quite yet.
Okay.
Yeah, me
Anyone else have a good answer? Because I expected there to be a surge, and that's why the Pentagon is currently pulling troops away because the surge never happened. So they're like, okay, well, we just have a bunch of people here for no reason. We're pulling them out.
I'll just put it this way, or at least in my mind, the vast majority of the time, Americans have this big idea, like our domestic policy is what's going to deter immigration or help immigration. It really doesn't seem to matter. Like, these folks are literally just packing up and leaving their homes because it's horrible for where they're coming from.
I would like to piggyback off what you're saying, Tiberius.
Sure.
Like, the Washington Office of Latin America have argued that the diminishing number of border crossings can only partially be attributed to U.S. security measures. Unintentional factors such as weakened U.S. economy or the Mexican drug war have made those are the things that are making people want to go. How good the economy is and stuff like that. Nothing if you're a desperate person and you need to get across the fence to make sure you live a good life, a few extra rows of barbed wire and 2 extra guards are not going to stop you.
I think that people are missing something with this, though. It's not the average, person wanting to come better their lives that we're worried about. That's not who at least in this context, is who we're worried about. Who we're worried about is the people that are trafficking these kids under the pretext, of that. People using these trains to bring stuff in, people using it to put people in here without the U.S. government knowing. That's what we're worried about. We're not worried about the overall honest person who's trying to better their lives. We're all worried about the avenue that is giving these bad apples. And these bad actors.
But what percentages? Yeah, but what percentages are you
So the
talking
problem is,
about?
No, because I'm saying you're a desperate person. You're trying to get to America, and you're in I don't know, Nicaragua, southern Mexico, where a solid amount of cocaine is fucking $20, and then you bring that over here, and all of a sudden it's worth 500, 600. If you're a desperate person, why wouldn't you do that?
I mean, that really argues the point I'm trying to make there. Exactly.
That's not even the cartel. That's just a poor
who are they
person
buying it
trying
from?
to.
Who are they buying it from?
They're just it's
because y'all were making the argument earlier about the Americans selling guns to them. So in the same argument there, the cartel's selling the cocaine to them, and then they're doing it. So what's the difference between a guy buying a 8-ball of cocaine and selling it here, and a guy buying his handgun and taking it to Mexico? What's the difference?
The difference is those drugs are illegal in the United States, and the difference is the guns are illegal in Mexico. So if we decriminalize in the United States and push gun rights in Mexico, they should even out.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So in answer to your question, though, one
when people can defend
theory
themselves
that I've been given from my chat is that during Title 42, they just deport the ones that came over. So you saw a lot of repeat crossings. It was the same people. They just kept trying to get in and get in. And then when we stopped doing that, well, you had a drop because there were less interactions, because less repeat offenders. That's a theory. I don't know if that's true, but it makes sense to me. It tracks. Yeah, that's it.
Are we maybe releasing less people? Releasing less
we're
people
literally
back?
turning back half the people that we were.
I mean, we need more people anyway. Okay, I am tired of fast food places not being 24 hours anymore.
Oh my god.
Is everybody on board with making the immigration process smoother?
There was one thing where Admiral was between you two where I did want to kind of chime in here. There is a point where immigration and border security obviously are linked at the hip, but there's separations between why do people come here versus how we combat the grub trade, right? Because they do relate, because one of the big things that the Admiral is 100% correct on is that we have seen the cartels rapidly change from marijuana sales to sponsoring the coyotes to human traffic people across the border, because they're willing to pay thousands of dollars to do it. That absolutely is a serious concern. It's also a serious concern of just a humanitarian crisis that the coyotes will stuff 40 people in a fucking container in the back of a truck and let them melt. There's levels to where it's if we can help increase border security, and granted, there's levels where I don't know if this is how feasible this shit is, but if we can actually help it to where, hey, we can check this shit to where, hey, there's people in here, guys. I think that's absolutely something that we should do.
Last year, they literally had a semi-trailer stacked with over 40 people that died. That's an exact point. He's exactly right. I mean,
do you think that would have happened? Do you think that would have happened if our border wasn't so shitty and they just let more people in?
I mean, or if it was North Korea level defense, then nobody's getting.
I don't see many containers full of people coming from Canada.
And why is that?
Because we don't have enough security to catch them. Okay, that's why we don't see them, because we don't have enough security to catch them. You can't see them at all because you don't know of the insidious nature of the Canadian threat that is pouring like maple syrup from the north across our border, that is coming in, infesting our spaces. I have been made aware recently that in my community has been infested. It has been infested with Canadians. I have Canadians on my panels. I have Canadians in my voice chats. I have Canadians in my Discord right this moment.
And cast them out.
Why aren't they working at our fast food restaurants, making them 24/7? You know what I mean?
All right. If I was actually to steelman Wick's argument there for just a second, there is a reality where 17 of the 19 hijackers from 9/11 came through Canada, right? There's a reality. There is a reality there that we could chew on a little bit. The big thing about Canada is they're trying to import people, not export people. Like that is really just the key difference. Like
Yeah,
the
but-
border security, like the border security is
Well,
different there
we
because
also need to import people to keep our like birth rate shit up. Like that's how
Alright.
America has kept its competitive edge
I-
and not become like Germany or Japan.
I want to throw a big wrench
whole
in this
different
argument
topic, but you
with-
have a point.
which
Yeah.
is that Canada is not a failed state, whereas our southern border has Mexico, which is almost a failed state, and then you have further south a ton of countries that, by every metric and every definition, are failed states,
Okay.
and they're sending their people in mass to the border.
$2 from Tepper takes to say worth every penny. The Canadian conspiracy. LOL. Fair enough. If that's what it takes, my anti-Canadian rhetoric to get you to pay me money, I will absolutely do it. Gang. Hey,
I refuse to
it's
be
almost the
anti-Ryan
end of the month.
Reynolds.
Let me show for a minute. It's almost the end of the month. Hey, I got bills to pay. I gotta eat. I gotta like get new digs, new duds, right? So every penny you give me goes directly to me. I love it. It's great. And I will spend it on all sorts of things, but including things I need. So if you so happen to have $5 laying around, a 20 in your pocket, you could spare for this kind of content, right? Real political shit. If you want me to do more of it, you gotta fund it. So if you're watching this on Kick or Twitch, give me some subs. Throw some bits my way. Really support me that way. If you're watching this on YouTube, consider super chatting, and we have memberships now on YouTube. Thank you, 𝕵𝖎𝖙, for the subscription. Look at him go. I'm now on his side of the argument for now. Okay? I don't have a Patreon quite yet, but I do have memberships on YouTube. So if you want to be a wicker on YouTube, you can. It's $3 a month. Okay? So go on, check it out.
Why do you have to call it that?
Yeah,
Because we are the 𝕵𝖎𝖙. We are wickers.
Is it with a hard
it's a
ER or
it's Wick Us.
is it Wick Us, right?
No, I said what I said. Okay, but anyway, after that, we are kind of circling the drain on this. Okay, we're circling the drain on this. So I want to give everyone here a chance to have closing statements, and then we'll shut it down. Okay, we'll rate out and we'll do this. So what we got coming up? Well, let me tell you what we got coming up, because I told you this is going to be a week of explosive content. Oh, we got explosive content tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Okay, we're going to do some call-ins beforehand at 6. Okay, we'll just do some open calls. But 8 o'clock, we have Rob Knorr and Portland is Burning coming on to do a one-on-one debate on Biden versus Trump. Who has been better for America? That will be an interesting one. So check it out. Bring your popcorn. Wednesday, I'm going to be talking with STV Philly about his recent gun debate with Destiny. So we'll be having him on. That will be awesome. Thursday is the big one, gang. Thursday is what you want to tune in for, because we have Destiny coming on. We have Turkey Tom from YouTube. We have Xena. We have Erudite. We have Brianna Wu. We're going to be talking about the 𝕬𝖎𝖙 situation and the ethics of platforming people, viewing people, supporting people who are having mental breakdowns live on stream, like who are legit ruining their lives for the clicks and views. Yeah, what responsibility do we have as viewers? What responsibility do we have as panel hosts? What responsibility do you have as an audience member who supports them or doesn't support them when it comes to these things? It'll be a great discussion. Tune in 6 p.m. Thursday. Awesome. And then Friday, because we aren't done, Friday, we have me and PF Young teaming up for a debate against Ninetales and Aston Mac on Is Capitalism Racist? So tune in. It'll be fun.
Okay.
Okay. Closing statements. We'll start with Gibbs. Go ahead.
I mean, I think that basically I made my point. It's going to take a drastic effort if we really want to solve the prices along the border and the cartels in Mexico. It's going to take a hand of basically God on earth, which is going to be the U.S. military, coming in with a scorched earth, salted earth policy, and working with local leaders to help rebuild what's left after we're done rooting these people out from the grass like weeds. That's the only way this is going to get done. And if you think otherwise, I hate to break it to you, but you're wrong.
Gibbs, where can people find you?
Twitch.tv/AdmiralGibbs and on kick.com/.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Ellen Degenerate, go ahead.
Yeah, my whole position, it's a dumb thing to do, and even if you do, it won't work. Um, it's something that can be made domestically too easily. They're sending the military there will probably create more opportunities for drug trafficking, not less, considering historically the amount of people in the U.S. military that do engage in drug trafficking and the conflicts they go to, and that the Pentagon themselves are pulling people away from the border because they see no real threat. So I'm not going to pretend to be smarter than the Pentagon.
Base. I wonder what you'll say when they want to invade another country later, but we'll find out.
Eh,
Thanks
it
for being
depends.
here. Thanks for coming. Where can people find you again?
Apartments unknown.
Apartments unknown. Got you. Food stamps. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I just think I don't know. Like it just seems another like one of these hokey pokey things that Republicans talk about to make their base like cheer and stuff, even though like the politicians themselves know that it'll just literally never ever happen. And at the same time, I think there's like many adequate reasons why you would never ever like not even like send drone strikes into Mexico. And if you look at any other policy, there's lots of policies that we haven't gone the extra length to extend, or there's other policies that we haven't gone the extra length to try out yet. In order to combat stuff like fentanyl or even like child trafficking or sex trafficking here in the United States, or to combat cartels in the first place. And I think the idea of just attacking Mexican soil is ridiculous in general. But otherwise, I think we were just like going around in circles about how, oh, this thing is useless but not useless. This thing is useless but not useless. Otherwise, you can just check me out at kick.com/food shops. And if you want to argue about it further, or you can check my YouTube out at 𝕵𝖎 shops. But that's about it. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for being here. Gang, check her out if you'd like to. Hammer, go ahead.
Hey, I guess my point is that the cartels have grown way past the point of just being a drug trading group. They are vying for legitimacy and for power in Mexico, and the only way to interrupt their rise to power is through military force. Mexico government, the most easy way to do that is Mexico's government asking for us to bring troops over, and if they don't do that, then we need to get them to agree to that, because it's at a point where it's like almost past the point of no return.
Okay, where can people find you?
Twitch.tv /Mr. Hammer. That's MR_R_Hammer.
Check him out, gang. Thanks for being here.
Mm-hmm.
SDA.
Thanks for having me.
What you got?
I think that this entire thing, and the only reason we're talking about it, is Vivek Ramaswamy is a red meat politician, and he wanted to throw something out there that not everybody else knew much about or has thought about, but sounded really good. I think that public trust is incredibly low at the moment, especially for members of the Republican Party, seeing as the former president is now indicted in 4 different jurisdictions. And that having a war solidifies public trust. Oh, you don't support the might of God's army coming down on the Mexican cartels? Well, you must be anti-American. I think that's the entire reason this was thrown out there, to try and solidify some like, oh, look at us, we're the America party, but maybe we won't do it, maybe we will. I think the only feasible way this happens is if we complete the objectives we set out to accomplish in Ukraine, such as allowing the Ukrainians to reclaim their territory, pull out of that kind of military operation, and focus on more peacetime operations at home, and work towards a political, diplomatic, and economic solution to Mexico, just like we did with North Mexico, as Tiberius has kind of loved to talk about, is that we've relatively Americanized North Mexico. Why wouldn't we push that further and Americanize more further down south if possible? You can find me on Twitter at 𝕭𝑔𝖎𝖏 with 2 S's there, and every other link that is relevant will be there. My current moniker is anarcho-absurdist, and I'm mainly a gun rights advocate. Thanks for having me on, Whit.
Well, thanks for being here. And if you want more anti-American takes, you can find it there. Thanks again. Finally, last but not least, the long-suffering 𝕬𝖎𝖙. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not going to repeat anything I had to say today. I think I made my points pretty well. In fact, I think I got quoted a few times, so I'm honored, gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure. We struggled a little bit in that first act, but in acts 2 and 3, this has been an absolutely wonderful panel. Thank you for the engagement, and Wick, thank you for inviting me on. It was a pleasure. You all can check me out if you desire. If you think that you either agree with me or didn't agree, I'm pretty much open to most comers, as long as you're decently respectful. 𝕬𝖎𝖙 at pretty much almost every social media you can find. But yeah, thank you all for having me on. Thank you all for the engagement, and we'll catch you all next time. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks again. Okay, gang, where are we going? We're going to Prime Kai. So what you want to do is when you get there, I want you to spam those emotes. Let them know it's a hate raid. But yeah, so we're going to try this on YouTube as well. Give me a second. Prime. Okay, banning trans women from chess. Is that his thing? Okay, I guess. Good luck with that conversation, gang. Have fun. And I will see you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m. for calls, 8 p.m. for the debate. Bye.